at this point, now that I know that it's completely welded and I've drawn it out a little bit, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let it cool, and then I'm going to grind off the sides so we can start hammering on the sides and the ends, and we'll cut the handle off so we can use it with tongs. Something to note about when you're letting your piece cool down is I like to put mine inside my forge while the forge is still hot, so it cools down very gradually, and that reduces any sort of stress that might otherwise be put on it by just dunking it in water and shocking it, because you're gonna break your piece if you do that. So now I'm gonna clamp it up in the vise, and look at my sorting skills. I'm gonna clamp it up in the vise and then go to town on it with an angle grinder. So I hacked one end off of it and everything looks good, except right there, there's a little hole. My guess is one of the layers had a small, like, where I mishit it with the grinder and it put like a notch in it, and that didn't forge down, and then that was able to oxidize probably outside of the fire, and then we weren't able to re-weld to it. Hopefully that doesn't go too deep. It hopefully shouldn't, but if it does, this billet's junk. So yeah, I'm gonna keep cutting the sides off and the other end, and I'll get back to you. Alright, so this is interesting. So as grinding, I have one of the sides cut off. It's actually oh, that's extremely hot. Because I was just grinding it. But I have one of the sides cut off. Everything welded up beautifully, except for right here, and I'm like, crap, there's a crack. But that's actually that little hole on the end that we saw that I was talking about. And it's right on the surface, so it looks like I'll be able to grind that right out, and everything will be perfect. Hopefully. Hopefully. Yep, that came out no problem at all. It just took a minute. Luckily, I mean, we lost a little bit of material there, but this is way more than I'm gonna need for one knife. You could probably make 2 or 3 knives out of this. If you really pushed it, maybe even 4. But I'm gonna keep grinding this up and get her good. Alright, so I have the billet cleaned up a little more. It's still very rough. Like, I left these are the sides where the individual layers were. So the layers were stacked like this. So I have that clean. I see 0 problems whatsoever with the welding. You can actually almost see the pattern on this side, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I think I'm gonna continue doing some grinding, just some lighter grinding, like squaring the faces off, and just getting rid of all this scale. And then I'll take it back to the forge, and start forging it down into a flat bar, which we'll make our knife from. Alright, so here's the block of steel. Still not perfectly shined up or anything, but that's fine because it's going to be stuck back into the forge and forged into a knife. You can see it's solid. It's fairly heavy. Let me see, I think I have a scale somewhere around here. Does it work? Yep. Grams, ounces. So here's it in ounces. weighs 10.57 ounces. So that's considerable. It's not quite a pound. Let's compare it to this small neck knife. That only weighs 2.91 ounces, so we'll call it 3. So you could make 3 of these out of this and still have a little bit left over. Here's another one I'm working on. 2.28 ounces. Same thing. You could build like 5 of these out of this. But they would be cooler because this is Damascus. And let's see if I get it in the light. I don't know. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. But you can almost see the pattern if you get the light just right. Like right in here maybe. Let me focus on it. I don't know if you can quite see it, but you can see the layers. But yeah, very cool. Now we're gonna forge it down. Alright, so here's the piece all forged out. It's not super small, but it's not real big either. It's a nice size for like a camp knife or something. Still a bit thick. Normally I would take this down more, but I want this to have some weight on it to be a chopper, and heavier knives are cool. I didn't take it as far down, like normally with a conventional knife, I would isolate the bevel with a hammer, but I just left this completely flat. I did that to preserve the pattern of the Damascus. I'm keeping it relatively parallel. Since this is low layer Damascus, if I start tapering this, it's going to distort the Damascus pattern and start bringing it down. And then once we start doing the grinding, you won't really be able to see the pattern. This isn't a big problem with high-level Damascus, as the layers are so thin, but the layers in this are still relatively thick. So yeah, I'm going to start doing the grinding the bevels, and then we'll probably do a heat treat, because heat-treated knives are knives, because something that's not been heat-treated is not a knife, because it's just a piece of steel that's knife Okay, I'm going to do the grinding. Alright, so this should be interesting. I haven't done any cutting or grinding on this since I weighed it last time. So we're going to see how much we lost, how much mass we lost from just forging. The scale, the oxides, flake off. And you lose actually a significant amount. So it was 10.57, I think, last time I weighed it, prior to forging. And now it's, oh wow, 9.63. So we lost almost an entire ounce just to oxides being formed and flaking off. It's actually pretty crazy. That's almost a tenth of what we lost, like a tenth of the steel just to rust, essentially, because that's what oxides are. So now I'm going to start grinding this. If you use a 2x72 belt grinder, you should never store it with the belts tensioned on all the wheels. You should always take it off, as storing it long term with the tension on the belt actually can damage the fibers, because this is just paper, and your belts can run very poorly if you do that, or they could explode and injure you, and you could lose your vision, and you don't want to do that. So might have to address the checking, but I mean, it's better than getting injured or having to replace the blade every time, or the belt every time you want to use it. So I'm going to start grinding this now. Alright, so I've done the rough grinding. Let's to continue with our theme. Let's might as well weigh it now. So we've ground off another ounce, and that's just down here and in the air and in my lungs as grinding dust. So we'll kill this. So I dipped it in a little bit of acid, ferric chloride, and you can see the individual layers of it. Yeah, my bevels aren't quite even just yet. But if we, look, you can see the layers of the steel, which is awesome. Alright, I'm going to adjust the bevels a little more. It's still fairly thick. Normally I like to go dime thickness, but I don't know what kind of steel this is, and I suspect it's high-speed steel. I've done some more research, which is very, very tricky to get the right kind of heat treat, and I anticipate that this is gonna warp horrendously, so I really want to keep it thick along the edge in the spine. So I'm going to continue doing some work on this, and then we're going to go into the heat treat. I'm going to have to remember to drill the handle pin holes for attaching a handle.